I was invited to the tea of the most influential women in the city, but on my seat it read, "The inconvenient one is here." What I revealed immediately silenced the laughter. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between bills and junk. Mail. I almost threw it away. The cream-colored envelope with gold embossing wasn't something typically addressed to Angela Harrington, owner of a modest flower shop in the quieter part of town. My hands trembled as I opened it. An invitation to the annual Riverside Ladies' Tea, the most exclusive social event in our city, hosted at the Fairmont Hotel. Only the elite were invited: doctors' wives, executives, old money families. Not women like me who spent their days with soil under their fingernails. The invitation was from Vivian, my brother Richard's wife of 20 years. We'd never been close. In fact, distant would be a generous description of our relationship. She'd always made it clear that I wasn't the sort of sister-in-law she had hoped for. Not with my simple clothes and lack of social connections. "Perhaps it's time we brought you into the fold, Angela," she had said when she called later that day. "You've been on your own for so long. The ladies would love to meet Richard's sister." Something in her tone should have warned me. But at 55, after decades of being excluded from family gatherings deemed too sophisticated for someone like me, I wanted to believe I was finally being accepted. I spent money I couldn't afford on a new dress. Nothing flashy, just a modest powder blue A-line that complemented my graying hair. I even visited the salon, something I did maybe once a year. "You look nice," my employee Jenny said as I left the shop early that Thursday. "But are you sure about this? Those women, they're not like us." I brushed off her concern. "They're just people, Jenny. Besides, it's about time I got to know my sister-in-law's friends." The Fairmont's ballroom was transformed with white linens, crystal, and arrangements of orchids and roses that made my professional eye both envious and critical. 20 or so women in designer dresses clustered in groups, champagne flutes in hand. Vivian spotted me and waved, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Angela, you made it. How quaint you look." She led me to a table where 4 other women sat, their jewelry probably worth more than my entire business. "Ladies, this is Richard's sister, the one I told you about." The way they looked at me, a mixture of curiosity and something close to pity, made my stomach knot. I sat down in the empty chair and froze when I saw it. A delicate name card in elegant calligraphy that didn't bear my name, but instead read, "The inconvenient one is here." I looked up to see Vivian watching me, a small smile playing on her lips. The women around me tittered with barely suppressed laughter. "Oh, Angela," Vivian said, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Don't look so shocked. We all have our place, don't we? I just thought it would be amusing for the ladies to meet the black sheep Richard has tried so hard to keep hidden all these years." The laughter grew louder. I felt my face burning, remembering every family gathering I wasn't invited to, every Christmas where my gifts for my niece were forgotten in a closet. Every time Richard had said, "It's just easier if you don't come, Angie," I had been invited as entertainment. A joke. I gripped the edge of the table, steadying myself. "Well," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "If I'm going to be the day's entertainment, I might as well make it worthwhile." I looked directly at Vivian, whose smirk was fading into uncertainty. "Would you like me to tell them about the text, Vivian? The ones between you and Eleanor's husband?" The room went deathly quiet. Vivian's face drained of color, and I saw Eleanor, the elegant host of the tea sitting 3 tables away, stiffen in her chair. "What did you just say?" Vivian's voice had lost its mocking tone, replaced by something tight and strained. I hadn't planned this. I'd kept Vivian's secret for months, telling myself it wasn't my business, that revealing it would only make me look vindictive. But sitting there, humiliated in front of these women who didn't even know me, Something inside me snapped. The texts, I repeated, my voice steady now. Between you and James, Eleanor's husband. The woman to my right audibly gasped. Another nervously reached for her water glass. I think you're confused, Vivian said, but her hand trembled as she set down her teacup. No confusion at all. 3 months ago, you left your phone at my shop when you came to order flowers for Richard's birthday. A text came through while I was trying to find your contact to let you know you'd forgotten it. From James. Quite explicit. Eleanor stood up from her table, her elegant posture suddenly rigid. I didn't read the rest, I continued. But I saw enough. I kept your secret. Vivian, even though I've watched you pretend to be Eleanor's friend, even though you've treated me like dirt for 20 years. I stood up, smoothing down my new dress that suddenly seemed so pointless. I'm not the inconvenient one here, Vivian. You are. The chaos erupted as I walked out. Eleanor's voice sharp with rage, Vivian's desperate denials. The shocked murmurs of women who lived for this kind of scandal, but never expected to be in its epicenter. In the parking lot, I finally allowed my hands to shake. I'd done it. I'd burned the bridge entirely. Richard would never forgive me. My already tenuous connection to my only family was now severed completely. I drove home in a daze, to my small house with its garden that was my only real joy, besides the flower shop. Once inside, I kicked off my sensible heels and sank onto the couch, still in my blue dress, as the afternoon's events replayed in my mind. The phone rang at 7:30. Richard. I let it go to voicemail, then listened as my brother's voice filled my living room, tight with rage. What the hell did you think you were doing? Do you have any idea what you've done? Vivian is devastated. Her reputation, our reputation, you had no right. This is exactly why we don't include you in things, Angela. You've always been jealous of what we have. You've always tried to ruin things for me. Don't call us. Don't reach out. You're done. The message ended. I didn't cry. Instead, I found myself laughing. A hollow, broken sound in my empty house. Jealous? Of their cold, status-obsessed life? Of a marriage I now knew was a sham? The doorbell rang an hour later. I opened it, expecting Richard, ready for the confrontation. Instead, I found Rebecca, my 20-year-old niece, her eyes red-rimmed. Angie, she said, her voice small. Can I come in? I stepped aside, surprised. Rebecca hadn't visited me alone since she was a child. Vivian had made sure of that, always scheduling conflicting activities whenever I invited her. She sat at my kitchen table, refusing tea, twisting her hands in her lap. Mom and Dad are having a massive fight, she finally said. Dad's threatening divorce. Eleanor's husband showed up. It's chaos. I nodded, unsure what to say. Is it true? Rebecca asked. About Mom and Mr. Calloway? I sighed. I only saw one text, Rebecca. But yes, I believe it is. She nodded, staring at her hands. I'm not surprised. Mom's always been. She always has to have everything. The best house, the best clothes, the best husband. Even when she already has those things, she still wants more. In that moment, looking at my niece's face, so much like Richard's, but with a softness he'd long since lost, I realized how much I'd missed by being excluded from their lives. How little I knew this young woman. I'm sorry, I said. I never meant to cause this kind of upheaval. Rebecca looked up, her eyes surprisingly clear. Don't be. Maybe it needed to happen. Maybe we all needed to see the truth. She left shortly, after promising to call me the next day. As I shut the door behind her, I felt a strange mixture of guilt and liberation. I had revealed a painful truth, but perhaps in doing so, I had finally broken free from decades of subtle cruelty and exclusion. I slept restlessly that night, dreaming of name cards and whispers and the look of betrayal on Eleanor's face. By Morning, I knew the news would have spread throughout their social circle. Angela Harrington, the troublemaker. The outsider who had dared to speak the unspeakable. I should have been terrified of the fallout. Instead, as I made my morning coffee, I found myself standing straighter. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. I felt free. Within 3 days, the whispers spread through our small city like wildfire. I felt the stares as I arranged tulips in the front window of my shop. Heard the hushed conversations that stopped when I approached at the grocery store. Riverside wasn't large enough to hide from a scandal, especially one involving the Calloway and Harrington families. My phone had been unnervingly silent. No more angry calls from Richard, not even a text. That silence worried me more than his rage. My brother could hold a grudge longer than anyone I knew. "Ms. Harrington?" Jenny called from the front counter. "There's someone here to see you." I looked up, expecting perhaps Rebecca again. Instead, I found Eleanor Calloway herself standing in my small flower shop, looking as out of place as a peacock in a chicken coop. Her tailored beige suit probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Eleanor," I said, wiping my hands on my apron, "this is unexpected." She glanced around at the buckets of flowers, the modest displays, the worn but clean countertops. "I've never been in here before," she remarked, as if surprised to find it existed at all. "What can I help you with?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Eleanor's perfectly made-up face was impossible to read. "You've created quite the situation, Angela." I told the truth. Vivian did that to herself. Eleanor's lip twitched slightly. "James moved out last night. We're separating." I felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry. Are you?" Her eyes, sharp, intelligent eyes, studied me. "I'm not sure I believe that." "I never meant to hurt you," I said truthfully. I couldn't let Vivian humiliate me again." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Vivian told everyone you made it all up. That you've always been jealous of her and Richard's marriage. That you're mentally unstable." I laughed despite myself. "Of course she did." "Is it true that you have proof?" Eleanor asked, her voice betraying just a hint of vulnerability beneath the steel. I hesitated. "I saw one text. I didn't take pictures. Or save it." "I see." Eleanor straightened her already perfect posture. "Well, it hardly matters. James confessed eventually." We stood in awkward silence for a moment. "I'm canceling my standing order with Harrington Flowers," she finally said. "And I've spoken to the Riverside Garden Club. They'll be using Peterson's for the spring luncheon." My stomach dropped. The garden club order was my biggest annual contract. "I understand," I said, somehow keeping my voice even. Eleanor turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You shouldn't have kept it a secret, Angela. Not for Vivian's sake." After she left, I sank onto my stool behind the counter. Jenny approached cautiously. Was that Eleanor Calloway? What did she want? "To cancel her orders," I said. "And apparently, to let me know that the garden club is dropping us too." Jenny's face fell. "Because of what happened at the tea?" I nodded. "That's not fair. You didn't do anything wrong." I gave her a tired smile. "Life isn't fair, Jenny." By the end of the week, 4 more standing orders had been canceled. Vivian had been busy, it seemed. The whispers around town had taken a decidedly negative turn. Poor, unstable Angela, making up vicious lies about her successful brother's wife out of jealousy. I was restocking roses when the bell over the door jingled. Rebecca stood there, looking nervous. "Hi, Aunt Angie." "Rebecca?" I said, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." "Mom took away my car keys," she said. "I had to take the bus. She doesn't want me talking to you." "I'm not surprised," I sighed. "Are you sure you should be here then?" Rebecca stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I needed to tell you something. Mom's telling everyone you're lying, but I know you're not." "How do you know that?" Because I saw the texts too. Months ago. I borrowed her phone to call a friend when mine died, and the messages popped up. She wrung her hands. I didn't know what to do. Dad worships her. He never sees how she really is. I studied my niece's face. There was something there I'd never noticed before. A wariness, a tension around her eyes. Rebecca, how does your mother treat you when no one's around? Her eyes filled with tears. She has expectations. I'm never quite meeting them. Too fat, too quiet, too ordinary. Not the daughter she deserves. I felt a surge of protective anger. You're perfect exactly as you are. Rebecca blinked back tears. I've been thinking of moving out. I saved a little from my summer job, but it's not enough yet for an apartment. I hesitated only briefly. I have a spare room. It's small, but it's yours if you want it. Her eyes widened. Really? But what about Mom and Dad? They'll be furious. Let them be, I said, surprising myself with my own boldness. It's time someone in this family stood up to Vivian. Rebecca threw her arms around me, a spontaneous hug that caught me off guard. Over her shoulder through the front window, I saw Richard's car pull up to the curb outside. Well, I murmured, looks like we might get that chance sooner than expected. Richard didn't slam the door when he entered my shop. That would have been too undignified for him. Instead, he closed it with a controlled precision that was somehow more intimidating than any display of rage. Rebecca, he said, his voice deceptively calm. Your mother has been looking for you. Rebecca's body tensed beside me. I'm talking to Aunt Angie. I can see that. It's time to go home now. I placed a protective hand on Rebecca's shoulder. She's welcome to stay and talk as long as she likes, Richard. My brother's face tightened. He was still handsome at 60, his gray hair making him look distinguished rather than old. But in that moment, I saw the coldness that had always lurked beneath his polished veneer. Haven't you done enough damage, Angela? First you humiliate my wife with your lies. They weren't lies, Rebecca interrupted, her voice shaking but determined. Mom's been seeing Mr. Calloway for months. I saw the messages too. Richard's face went slack with shock. He'd clearly expected his daughter to side with them, as she always had. Rebecca, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, she said. Mom's been awful to Aunt Angie for years, and you've let it happen. And she's been awful to me, too. That's ridiculous, Richard snapped. Your mother has given you everything. Except acceptance, Rebecca said quietly. Or kindness. Something shifted in Richard's eyes, a flicker of uncertainty, quickly replaced by anger. This is your doing, he said to me. You've poisoned my daughter against us. No, Richard, I replied, feeling strangely calm. Vivian did that all on her own. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. The garden club account was just the beginning, Angela. Vivian has friends in this town. Important friends. By the time she's done, you won't have a business left. The threat should have terrified me. A month ago, it would have. But standing there with Rebecca, I felt something unfamiliar stirring inside me. Strength, perhaps. Or simply the exhaustion of decades of allowing myself to be bullied. Is that who you've become, Richard? I asked softly. A man who helps his wife destroy his own sister's livelihood because she exposed an ugly truth? Something flickered across his face, regret, perhaps, or shame. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Rebecca, let's go, he repeated, reaching for her arm. Rebecca stepped back. No, I'm staying with Aunt Angie for a while. Don't be ridiculous. You have university. I can commute, she said firmly. I need some space from you and Mom. Richard's face darkened. If you don't come home now, your tuition stops. Your allowance stops. Everything stops. I felt Rebecca tremble beside me, but her voice remained steady. Then I'll get a job. I'll take out loans like normal students." Richard stared at her, clearly not having expected this resistance. Then he turned to me, his expression cold. "Congratulations, Angela. You've finally succeeded in turning my family against me. I hope you're satisfied." He turned and walked out, the bell above the door jingling with incongruous cheerfulness. That night, Rebecca slept in my spare room while I tallied the month's books at my kitchen table. The numbers were grim. With the garden club account gone and several other cancellations, I was looking at a significant shortfall. If Vivian succeeded in turning more clients against me, the shop might not survive until summer. I was still staring at the figures when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Eleanor Calloway. Can we meet tomorrow? 10 a.m. at Riverside Park. I have a proposition." I showed up at the park the next morning, curious despite my wariness. Eleanor was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the duck pond, looking less polished than I'd ever seen her. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat beside her. "What's this about, Eleanor?" She gazed out at the water. "I've left James. For good. The divorce papers are being drawn up." "I'm sorry," I said and meant it. She shook her head. "Don't be. It needed to happen. I've been complicit in my own unhappiness for too long." She turned to me. "Much like you, I suspect." I said nothing, surprised by her insight. "The annual Municipal Gardens fundraiser is next month," she continued. "I'm chairing it again." "Congratulations," I said cautiously. "I want Harrington Flowers to do the arrangements." She handed me a folder. 20 centerpieces, 6 large installations. The full contract is inside. I blinked in shock. The Municipal Gardens event was the biggest social event of the spring. The floral contract alone was worth thousands. "But why?" I managed. Eleanor's lips curved in a smile that had a hint of steel to it. "Vivian has always cared more about appearances than reality. She thinks she has power over me because of what happened. I think it's time to show her which of us actually has influence in this town." I opened the folder, scanning the details. "This contract could save my business. What do you say, Angela? Partners in a little social recalibration?" I found myself returning her smile. "I'd be delighted, Eleanor." As I walked back to my shop, the spring sunshine suddenly seemed brighter. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. Vivian wouldn't back down without a fight. But for the first time in years, I wasn't facing it alone. And perhaps more importantly, I was finally finding the strength to stand up for myself. The morning of the Municipal Gardens fundraiser dawned clear and bright. I had been up since 4 a.m., my hands steady as I arranged white peonies, blue hydrangeas, and trailing ivy in elegant crystal vases. Rebecca worked beside me, her artistic eye surprising me. In the 3 weeks she'd lived with me, we'd discovered shared interests neither of us had known about. "These are beautiful, Aunt Angie," she said, stepping back to admire our work. The shop had transformed in the past weeks. Rebecca had suggested we add a small coffee corner with fresh pastries from the local bakery. She'd redesigned our social media presence, posting daily photos of our arrangements. The younger crowd in town had started coming in, drawn by Rebecca's modern touch and my traditional craftsmanship. Business was slowly picking up, though Vivian's influence still cast a shadow. Just last week, I'd discovered that she'd spread rumors that I used old, half-dead flowers and overcharged. Rebecca had responded by posting behind-the-scenes videos of our morning flower selection process. "Eleanor called again," Rebecca said, carefully placing a centerpiece in our delivery van. "She wanted to make sure everything is perfect." "Will be," I assured her, though my stomach was in knots. This event would either resurrect my reputation in Riverside or sink it entirely. Jenny appeared at the back door. "There's someone here to see you, Ms. Harrington." I turned to find Margaret Lewis standing awkwardly by the workroom entrance. Margaret had been one of the women at Vivian's table during the infamous tea, her laughter among the most cutting when I discovered my name card. "Margaret," I said warily, "how can I help you?" She twisted her expensive handbag strap. I wanted to apologize, Angela. I shouldn't have laughed that day. I studied her face, looking for insincerity, finding none. Why the change of heart? Vivian. She hesitated. She's been saying terrible things about you. But then I saw your work for the Callaway Foundation dinner last week. It was exquisite. And I started wondering what else she might have been wrong about. I felt a small, vindicating warmth in my chest. Thank you, Margaret. I'd like to order arrangements for my daughter's graduation party next month, she continued. If you're not too busy. By early afternoon, all 20 centerpieces and 6 large installations had been delivered and set up at the Riverside Country Club. The ballroom looked magical. My vision of an English garden in spring brought to life with cascading, flowers and delicate greenery. Eleanor moved through the space with quiet authority, nodding approval. It's perfect, Angela, she said. Even better than I hoped. Guests would begin arriving in an hour. I was gathering my tools when Eleanor touched my arm. You're staying, of course. I blinked in surprise. I wasn't invited. You are now, she said firmly, handing me an embossed name card. Table 1, my table. I stared at the card, Angela Harrington, written in the same elegant script that had once marked me as the inconvenient one. I can't, I said. I don't have anything to wear, and I took the liberty, Eleanor interrupted, gesturing to a garment bag hanging in the office. I hope you don't mind. The boutique owner assured me it would fit. Inside was a simple but elegant navy dress that looked exactly like something I would choose for myself if I had Eleanor's budget. Rebecca's eyes widened when she saw it. Aunt Angie, you have to stay. It will show everyone that Eleanor supports you. An hour later, I stood nervously at the entrance to the ballroom as Riverside's elite filtered in. Some nodded politely at me. Others pretended not to see me. I was searching for Eleanor when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Angela. I turned to find Richard standing there, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. We hadn't spoken since his confrontation in my shop. What are you doing here? He asked. I did the flowers, I said. And Eleanor invited me to stay. His eyes narrowed. Vivian won't like that. I don't particularly care what Vivian likes anymore, Richard. He shifted uneasily. Rebecca hasn't been answering my calls. She's been busy, working at the shop, taking classes, living her life. Is she happy? He asked, his voice betraying the first genuine emotion I'd heard from him in years. Yes, I said honestly. I think she is. Something in his face softened. I found something in Dad's old study, when we were clearing it out for the estate sale. He handed me a yellowed envelope. Inside was a document I'd never seen before. A deed to a small parcel of land on the edge of town. It was meant for you, Richard said. Dad left us each a piece of property. Vivian convinced me not to tell you about yours. I stared at him, speechless. It's not worth much, he continued. But it's yours. It always was. Before I could respond, Vivian appeared, her face tightening when she saw me. What is she doing here? She was invited, Richard replied, a new edge to his voice. By Eleanor. Well, that's just perfect, Vivian hissed. First you steal my daughter. Now you're trying to steal my social standing too? I looked at this woman who had tormented me for so many years and felt nothing but pity. I didn't steal anything, Vivian. You drove Rebecca away with your cruelty. And as for your social standing, you damaged that all on your own. Ladies and gentlemen, Eleanor's voice came over the microphone. If you'll all take your seats, dinner is about to be served. I turned away from Vivian, the deed still clutched in my hand, and walked toward table 1, where Eleanor and Rebecca were waiting. For me. Behind me, I heard Richard say quietly to his wife, We need to talk, Vivian, about a lot of things. 1 year later, I stood in front of the newly renovated storefront, the spring sunshine warming my face as Rebecca adjusted the sign. Harrington and Niece, flowers and gathering space. The small plot of land Richard had returned to me, my father's forgotten gift, had been sold to a developer for a surprisingly generous sum, enough to not only save my shop, but to expand it into the vacant space next door. "It looks perfect," Rebecca said, stepping back to admire our work. The bell over the door jingled as Jenny emerged with a tray of coffee cups. "The ladies from the book club are asking if they can set up in the corner nook today instead of the main table." "Of course," I nodded. "Whatever makes them comfortable." The shop had evolved over the past year, becoming more than just a place to buy flowers. The coffee corner Rebecca had suggested had expanded into a full gathering space, with comfortable chairs and small tables where community groups met throughout the week. Garden clubs, book clubs, a support group for women starting new businesses, all found a home in our warm, flower-filled space. "Aunt Angie," Rebecca called from inside. "The invitation you've been waiting for is here." My heart skipped as I took the cream-colored envelope from her hands. The Riverside Ladies' Tea once again. I'd heard they had new leadership this year. "Are you going to go?" Rebecca asked. I thought about it for a moment. "Yes," I decided. "I think I will." The past year had been one of surprising transformations. Eleanor and I had become unlikely friends, our weekly lunches a source of mutual support and unexpected laughter. Richard had filed for divorce from Vivian after discovering more indiscretions, and was slowly, cautiously attempting to rebuild a relationship with both me and Rebecca. Vivian had moved to the city, where her brand of social manipulation didn't have the same impact in a sea of strangers. The last I'd heard, she was dating a divorced banker and spinning tales of her escape from small-town oppression. And me? I had found my voice, my place. Not as Richard Harrington's inconvenient sister, but as Angela Harrington, business owner, community builder, and surprisingly, mentor to several young women in town who sought my advice on standing their ground. The day of the tea arrived with perfect spring weather. I wore a simple green dress that complemented my silver hair, which I now wore in a stylish bob instead of the severe bun I'd favored for years. Eleanor met me outside the hotel. "Ready?" she asked with a knowing smile. "As I'll ever be," I replied. Tidy, ballroom was filled with familiar faces, but the energy was different, less exclusive, more genuine. Margaret Lewis waved me over to her table, where several women greeted me warmly. "Angela, we were just discussing the summer garden tour," Margaret said. "We'd love to include your courtyard garden if you're willing." I was about to answer when I noticed the name card at my place setting. This time, it simply read, Angela Harrington, in elegant script, just like everyone else's. I smiled, running my finger over the letters. "I'd be honored to participate, Margaret." After the meal, a woman I didn't recognize approached me, Diane Miller, the new head of the Riverside Ladies Auxiliary. "Ms. Harrington," she said warmly. "I've heard so much about you. Eleanor tells me you've transformed your shop into something of a community center." I nodded, warmed by the recognition. "We try to provide a welcoming space for anyone who needs it." "That's exactly the kind of initiative our group wants to support," she continued. "We're starting a grant program for women-owned businesses that give back to the community. I'd love to discuss how we might help you expand your gathering space concept." Later, as Eleanor and I shared a quiet moment on the hotel terrace, I found myself shaking my head in wonder. "Something amusing?" she asked. "Life," I replied. A year ago, I was the inconvenient one, the woman no one wanted at these events. And now you're becoming a force in this town," Eleanor finished for me, "on your own terms." I thought about Rebecca, who had blossomed working at the shop while finishing her degree, about the small but growing community that gathered daily in our space, about the women who sought me out for advice or simply a listening ear. "I spent so many years trying to be accepted by people who never valued me," I said softly. "I never," Realize that by being myself, I might create something more meaningful than social acceptance. Eleanor raised her champagne glass. To the inconvenient ones, she said with a small smile, may we continue to disrupt the comfortable and comfort the disrupted. I clinked my glass against hers. To finding our own place in the world, however, late in life it comes. That evening, I returned to my shop, my haven, and found Rebecca hosting an impromptu gathering of young entrepreneurs. Their laughter filled the space, mingling with the scent of flowers and fresh coffee. "Aunt Angie," she called, waving me over. "How was the tea?" "Different," I said. "Better." As I moved through my shop, greeting each person by name, I thought about that first invitation a year ago, the one that had seemed like a chance to finally belong, but had actually been a cruel joke. It had turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. The name card that had once hurt me so deeply. Though inconvenient one had become a badge of honor. Being inconvenient to those who wanted to maintain their comfortable status quo was sometimes exactly what was needed. I had spent 55 years in the shadow of my brother's social standing, seeking approval from people who would never truly see me. Now, at 56, I had finally stepped into the light. Not their light, but my own. And it was glorious.